we're getting a lot of reaction to our story about bank employees losing their jobs only to be replaced with temporary foreign workers. And some of that reaction came directly from the head of RBC today in an exclusive interview with our senior business correspondent, Amanda Lang. That's coming up. But first, Kathy Tomlinson with more stories from more employees at more banks.
It appears they're in every major bank. Foreign contractors here temporarily taking over work that will go overseas while Canadian workers go out the door.
I had to train one of the guys to do the job I was leaving.
Juan Terrazas worked in IT for TD Canada Trust. He says he and dozens of others were let go last year after temporary workers showed up to learn the ropes.
My salary, my location, my bonus, everything just went out the door.
I was replaced by an employee hired from Mahindra Satyam.
Same story from Lisa Cobo, but at Scotiabank. She was on contract when the manager of this Indian outsourcing company here temporarily told her she was gone.
You know, they often told me we're here to make money and then we're going to go back to India and have a great life.
RBC terminated Gail Tedford's job last year, she says, similar circumstances.
I don't care what RBC says. I know what they did to me and I know what they did to many other workers. And what they're doing is totally unethical and unacceptable.
Joanna Ganachinska also saw her RBC job go to a foreign worker.
That's why they came here to train on the jobs that we were doing. They had no skills whatsoever.
We heard from BMO staffers and some from CIBC saying it's happening there too. There's a flood of upset IT workers, many now unemployed. The opposition leader is taking up their cause.
The employee who's losing his or her job doesn't care what kind of a loophole it is. All they know is that we have a Canadian government that is allowing this to take place.
As many Canadians join in.
My last check at the Royal Bank of Canada.
Brian Sear is just one bank customer expressing his outrage by closing his RBC accounts.
It's outrageous what we're doing to our country.
On Facebook, there's a boycott RBC page, nothing less than national outrage. The immigration minister says it's against federal rules for any foreign worker to come here, even temporarily, if it costs a Canadian their job. It's clear now, though, this type of outsourcing is common and many Canadians want it stopped.
Two longtime employees of a Saskatchewan restaurant say they were fired and replaced by temporary foreign workers. The restaurant says it followed all the rules of the program when it brought in its new staff. As Jeff Leo tells us, labor economists say what happened to the two Canadians is happening more and more often.
This letter is formal written notice of your charge.
Sandy Nelson can barely manage to read her letter of dismissal. Last month, the 58-year-old waitress was let go after 28 years of working at Brothers Classic Grill and Pizza.
It hurts. I was so loyal to them, and they destroyed that trust that I had.
All the workers were let go last month. Some were hired back, including temporary foreign workers who are now doing Nelson's old job.
How can that be right? That they're not Canadians. I'm a Canadian.
Absolutely devastated. Floored. Yeah.
It's a question Shauna Jennison-Young is asking too. She says she loved her job at Brothers, where she worked for 14 years. But now the foreign worker she trained has taken her place.
The jobs they have aren't jobs that nobody wanted. We wanted them. We were good at them.
The issue of temporary foreign workers taking Canadian jobs got the government's attention following a series of stories by CBC's Go Public. The reports focused on some McDonald franchises where Canadians lost hours or jobs to foreign workers. This economist says it is a growing problem.
I have genuine concerns that Canadian employers are distorting the program, sort of breaking the rule, I think explicit rules of the program to their own advantage.
The minister responsible says this is a priority.
Abuse is unacceptable. Displacing Canadians from jobs is not tolerable. I can tell you as soon as we've learned of any allegations of abuse, we've immediately launched investigations, blacklisted the employers pending the outcome, and taken other disciplinary measures.
And today, the minister's press secretary confirmed Brothers Restaurant in Weyburn will be investigated. The owners of the restaurant say that they follow all the rules of the temporary foreign workers program. And they emphasize that employees are a valuable asset and they take their obligations to them seriously.
The replacement of Canadian employees by temporary immigrants has stirred significant controversy and evoked diverse opinions among the public as more employees are losing their jobs only to be replaced with temporary foreign workers. This practice has faced backlash from critics who argue that it can lead to exploitation of vulnerable workers, as temporary immigrants may be subjected to lower wages and subpar working conditions. There are concerns that this approach may also depress wages for Canadian workers and hinder their job prospect.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Speak Your Mind. I am Pastor Giovanni, and we're going to be here together to give you guys the following topic and give you the opportunity also to speak your mind on this matter. Right away, we would love to open the lines so that you can call us in this moment, 877-785-8700, or if you want to send us a message through WhatsApp, if you say, hey, Pastor, through WhatsApp, I like to communicate, 437-233-9815. I am not alone, but I have with me my co-host, Mrs. Audrey. How you doing, Miss? Good evening.
Hello, good evening, Pastor, and welcome, everybody. I'd also like to let you know that you can join our Telegram poll by scanning the QR code that appears on your screen and vote on the following for today's topic, immigrants and the workforce. Do you think that refugees, immigrants are helping the country, or have they become a problem? Let us know what you think. Do you think everybody should be welcome and accepted? Do you think they neither hurt or help the country? Do you think that they should close the borders because they are the problem? Or do you think the government is always a problem? Let us know what you think, and we'll be announcing the results during our show.
Thank you so much, Miss Audrey. You guys have that opportunity to speak your mind. When we come back, we're going to be taking some phone calls. We're going to be reading some comments. But first, I would love to show you about Canada's immigration targets necessary to offset aging workforce in that demographic. I want you to pay attention. We'll be right back with your program.
We're turning now to Canada's immigration strategy. At a time when skeptics are questioning Ottawa's plan to ramp up immigration, a new report argues the country needs to welcome more newcomers to counterbalance its aging demographic. With me now is Randall Bartlett, Senior Director, Canadian Economics with Desjardins. Hello, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So let's start at the very beginning. Why is it important to address the issue of our aging demographics here in this country? Why do we want to counterbalance what's happening?
Well, it's important to counterbalance what's happening in terms of aging demographics in Canada, because as people get older, they tend to work fewer hours and ultimately end up retiring. And so all of that input into the economy and the economic engine of Canada starts to dissipate through time. And so we have this big demographic bubble, which are the baby boomers. And so as they're retiring, the growth in economic activity is going to start to slow considerably as they leave the labor force. The other side of that is that as people age, their individual healthcare costs increase almost exponentially. And so as a consequence, not only do you get the economic growth slowing, but at the same time, you get costs rising dramatically. And so there really is this offset between those two factors. And so unless we start increasing economic growth through higher population growth or through increased productivity, those costs as share of economic output are going to continue to rise.
So we need younger people, more younger people. Is that it?
That's a big part of it, absolutely. So we need two things. We need more younger people, because younger people tend to work more, be more engaged in the labor force. And we also need people who are going to be more productive. And so we need both people with skills who are coming into the labor force, who can be more productive individually, but also we need to encourage investment by businesses in terms of increasing their output per worker as well.
So the way to address this gap is to welcome more newcomers. Tell us more then about the Desjardins report looking at this very issue and why it is so important.
So the Desjardins report looks at the trade-offs between what we're seeing in terms of demands from the labor market in the short term, because right now we have we have a high job vacancy rate. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in Canada since the mid 1970s, and so we have this demand in the near term in the labor market. In the longer term, we have needs of more workers coming into the economy, higher productivity in order to offset the drag from aging and ensure that we have fiscal sustainability at the provincial level as healthcare costs continue to rise. But then, of course, there are these other trade-offs where you're bringing in large numbers of people in the near term and a much faster rate than we're building housing. And so this is putting upward pressure on the Canadian housing market and eroding Canadian housing affordability even more rapidly. And so there are these trade-offs to immigration. It's not a one size or one policy sort of fits all. There are these trade-offs that policymakers have to think about when they're increasing their immigration targets.
Yeah, and I think you've hit on a key point that may have a lot of people questioning bringing more people here. Just last week, we were reporting in Toronto, just one city, where refugees were coming in and there was nowhere for them to live. People were actually living on the streets. So how then do we, getting back to the first word that we use, balance, how do we balance that need with providing places for people to live?
Yeah, so we have to think about immigration as not just one group of people, but as many different types of people with different characteristics. And so when we look at immigration in Canada, so permanent residents, the majority of those, about 60%, are economic immigrants, which have phenomenally positive labor market outcomes, both in terms of their ability to find employment quickly, and then the earnings that they make afterward are very, very strong. In fact, outperforming the average in Canada. So we have very strong outcomes from economic immigrants, and they make up the majority of permanent residents. But most of what we're seeing in terms of the population growth right now isn't on the permanent resident side. It's on the non-permanent resident side. So that's temporary foreign workers and foreign students. And so they, particularly those foreign workers, are coming in at the request of employers to meet a short-term labor market need that they have. And so consequently, all of those folks coming in are competing for the same housing that everyone else is competing for. And so that just pushes up prices as you have strong demand, but you don't have a supply response. And so really what the federal government, I think, needs to do is not just look at its immigration policy per se, but also the admissions for non-permanent residents and the requirements for that. And they can very quickly and easily start to tighten up some of those conditions to sort of provide a bit of a relief valve in terms of the impact it's having on the housing market, which might actually force employers both or either to increase wages as they try to attract workers because they just don't have the same supply, or give them incentives to start investing in machinery and equipment that's going to boost output and productivity in Canada, which ultimately has been lagging considerably over the last decade.
Randall Bartlett, thanks so much. Randall is the Senior Director of Canadian Economics with Desjardins.
And that is the question that we have for you right there on your screen. Are immigrants causing problems in Canada or actually helping? With us now in this moment, we have Ravi. Let's see if we can connect them in this moment right now. Ravi, do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Good evening, Ravi. How you doing?
Not too bad, Pastor.
Ravi, we're asking everybody the following question about the immigrants, especially here in Canada. Do you think they are benefiting the country? Do you think it's the total opposite? Do you think they don't make a difference? What's your opinion on immigrants being here in this country?
Generally, immigrant is what built the country up, because without immigrant, the country would not sustain, because the immigrant pay the taxes, they work harder to build roads and different infrastructure, and they work hard in the manufacturing sector, but they're not getting the right salary, like the livable salary. They're not getting that.
Now, Mr. Ravi, what would you say then to people who they have this mindset? No, we've spoken to various people and they go, oh, but immigrants are taking all the jobs of Canadian people. Do you agree with that statement?
No, immigrant is not taking a job. The reason why immigrants would take certain job because of the cost of living, and they have to sustain themselves. They don't want to go on the street begging. Whereas Canadian, they have a bracket of salary that they want to make per hour. You know, they have a rate pay. Whereas immigrants, they come from a hard country. They know the hardship, how to work.
So you think, Mr. Ravi, people who are coming outside of Canada into the country, you think they're kind of more of a rush to get a job, more of a rush to stabilize their life, whereas Canadians kind of, not that they have it easy, but they're a little bit more in their comfort zone?
Canadian is more in the comfort zone because they could just like chuck in the work, or they don't want to work and they could go in the government. And that's what the government does not look exactly at people who need, like they're sickly patients, sickly people who are disabled, or really need the support from the government. Whereas there's some immigrants who are very strong and healthy and just depend on the government instead of going out there looking for jobs.
Now, Mr. Ravi, last question. Are you someone born and raised here in Canada?
No, I was born out of Canada.
What country, Mr. Ravi?
Guyana, South America.
Perfect example then. Mr. Ravi, when you came here to this country, did you come here to this country to take a vacation or to go forward with your life?
To go forward, to gain new opportunities.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Ravi, thank you so much for speaking your mind. God bless you. Have a good night, okay?
Okay, thank you, Pastor.
877-785-8700, Mrs. Audrey, like Mr. Ravi said, who is from originally another country outside of Canada. He didn't come here for vacation. He came here to work. He came here to progress. Do we have any more comments?
Yes, Pastor, I actually have two. Eli says like this: it's all just too much. They want our jobs, they want our homes, and they don't add to anything. As opposed to Stacy, that actually says here, everyone should be welcomed. I came here from my home country as a refugee, and if Canada did not accept me, I would have nowhere else to go. After 10 years, I am proud to have been able to obtain my Canadian citizenship. I know things may not be great at the moment, but it's not the people's fault, and it's not them to blame. The government just needs to adjust and make room in housing, in workforce, and etc. This is just her opinion. Just like you can go ahead and share your opinion, and we'll read your comments here. Again, our WhatsApp number you can text is 437-233-9815.
Thank you so much. And also, you can scan the QR code at the bottom of your screen so you can join our poll that at the end, we're going to be sharing the results with all of you. Now, we want to show you a different take on immigrants who, according to this comedian, has been stealing jobs in Canada. We'll be right back.
Interesting experience I had recently. A white woman in a work context came up to me after learning that I was half Filipino. And this is what she said as her introduction to me. She said, when I was growing up, we had a Filipino nanny. Wait, she wasn't none. When I was growing up, we had a Filipino nanny, and my brother got her pregnant. Okay. Yeah, let's pause a bit. The choice of words there, got her pregnant, that's messed up. There's like, that's suggesting that there was a trick happening there. But what's really messed up is if you know about the live-in caregiver program that brings a lot of Filipino women to this country to raise children, they have to stay working with the same family for several years in order to be considered to be a permanent resident. So that means they have to stay silent. They can't complain a lot, and they're subjected to a lot of abuse. And so there's thousands of women here who have for years been raising children, and their demands have simply been that if we're good enough to raise your kids, we're good enough to live here. I think that makes sense. But actually, just this week, this government changed laws to actually make it harder for these women to become permanent residents. And it's not actually an outlandish demand, because this very thing is granted to people who are deemed skilled workers. So you can actually come here from another country if you're deemed a skilled worker and become a permanent resident right away. What is a skilled worker? So I looked this up. One of the first things that shows up on the list of skilled jobs, actor/comedian. Okay. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the flattery. If I mess up at work, I don't know, I might spill a drink. Some of you might not have as good a time. If you mess up when you're raising children, that kid might grow up to like become a racist. Or like, even worse, like become a racist and then become the Minister of Immigration. So we're undervaluing that labor, and of course that's mostly the work of women that we're undervaluing there. But the racism was also coming up this year around the temporary foreign worker issue. So for those of you who saw that, that was some people in Victoria who were initially angry because some Filipino folks as temporary foreign workers were here working in a McDonald's, and apparently there were some teenagers there who wanted those jobs. And there was a big uproar. The thing that, again, to me is the signifier here is the language that's used. So everyone who's getting angry was saying that these immigrants are stealing our jobs. So again, steal is really strong language, and obviously it immediately forces us to assume that this person is somehow a criminal, when in fact they were here legally doing this work. And also, you can't steal a job. I'm pretty sure it's physically impossible. At best, you might be able to like get in there and work that job for like 10 minutes. But then they're gonna get you out of there. I mean, to be able to steal it and like, hold it down 9 to 5 for like 2 weeks, and then also convince the management to like add you to the payroll. Very logistically complicated. So what I was thinking about that idea, and I'm also into making films, and I'm working on a screenplay for a feature film. It's an action movie. It's a heist movie about a ragtag group of Filipino people who are plotting to come to this country and steal a whole bunch of jobs. So, I quickly want to run this script outline by you just to see what you think. So in the opening, they're all gathered in this basement somewhere in the Philippines. There's a bunch of them, and they're like plotting. There's the leader, Francisco, and he's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get over there, and we're gonna roll up in the van. I've been casing out this guy's place. His name's Burger King. He is loaded. We're gonna roll up in this van. Philomena, you're gonna jimmy open that door. Then we're just gonna get in there and clean the floor and the toilets and take out the grease traps, just like working. And then the second act is these folks spending 4 years saving up the money to even be able to come here in the first place. It's a long second act. But then it happens, and they get here. And in the final act, they're going in, but right before they're about to do it, they're about to break open that door, one guy gets cold feet, and he's like, no, I'm out. I promised my wife the last job I stole was the last job I was going to steal. Can't do it. But of course, Francisco, the ringleader, he brings them out together, and he says, oh, you haven't even let me told you about the jackpot at the end of this, the payday. Minimum wage, the legal minimum amount of money that can be paid to a human being in this country. Well, if we play our cards right, we're going to be making minimum wage. Thank you for having me.
If Canada's highly educated workforce stands out, a big reason is recent immigrants. According to Statistics Canada, nearly 60% of those newcomers hold a bachelor's degree or higher. But a lot of that talent and training isn't being used.
So we're facing a lot of challenges.
Ayman Jibril and his wife were doctors in Yemen. They passed qualifying exams here, but still aren't practicing.
I applied for more than 30 family medicine departments and internal medicine for training programs in all over the country. Like but unfortunately, I didn't get any chance to be in the system.
More than 25% of recent immigrants are working jobs they're overqualified for. A paradox because it's often education that opened Canada's doors in the first place, says this expert.
You've qualified on the basis of your degree and your expertise. And yet then when you come here, the paradox is it's actually very difficult to find employment within that sector.
That's because these jobs also often require placements, internships, residencies.
Yes, the often cited example is doctors, but also nurses, also teachers. These are all professions that have their own colleges within the different provinces and have their own certifications. And for that reason, equivalency is very difficult for certain people in certain professions to gain.
But amidst the shortage of doctors and healthcare workers across the country, changes are already underway. BC is easing some requirements for foreign-trained doctors like Jabril, allowing them to work as associate physicians under the supervision of an attending doctor. And the province is also tripling the number of spots in its program designed to place foreign-trained doctors where they're needed most. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
And we're back. You can keep giving us a call, 877-785-8700. I think now we have Chris connected. Let's see if we can speak to him. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, Pastor, I can hear you.
How you doing, Chris? Good evening.
I'm doing great.
Chris, we've been asking everybody the following about immigration. Do you think immigration is something that has been helping Canada, or do you think it has, as many people put it, stealing jobs from Canadians?
So based on like the couple of videos that you guys have been putting up, it's very interesting to see both polar opposite views of the situation. And after waiting, I still believe that immigration is benefiting the country, especially Canada, since Canada is one of the leading countries in immigration reform and trying to integrate people from other countries to come, especially helping those that are refugees. So I do believe, yes, it is a big benefit in this country and not a problem.
What would you say, Chris, to that old-fashioned statement that immigrants are stealing jobs from Canadians?
It's very xenophobic and very narrow-minded. I think what's important that we need to understand about immigration and learning that immigration is not limited to just one specific demographic, one specific aspect. You have people not just working in labor forces, but for example, you have foreign doctors, foreign nurses, foreign technicians, and a lot of places, not just in Canada, but countries that have benefited from immigrants coming from other countries. Had it not been for them, history wouldn't be the way it is right now. I mean, aside from Canada, let's say, for example, if the U.S. didn't have people like Einstein coming to the U.S. from Germany, U.S.'s history might have been a lot different. You know, if it wasn't for that. I do believe that it's important that we need to be open to having immigrants coming into countries, especially those that can benefit those countries.
In my short time here in Toronto, Chris, I have already seen people from the Philippines, people from Guyana, people from Africa, people from Portugal, people that are immigrating from other countries. Do you think, for example, Canada, with the refugee program, has been doing its duty in helping the immigrants here in this country?
This is something that's very, very divisive, because I do believe that finding housing is very difficult for a lot of the refugees in these countries. A lot of these videos that you guys have been showing it's harsh. It's harsh things to do, and it's not just in Canada, but I do feel that some parts and aspects for them, they are kind of failing them, and it's not their just fault. I do believe the government is trying its best to try and help these refugees and to help them out.
Chris, thank you so much for speaking your mind, for sharing your thoughts with us. Have a good night, okay?
Thank you, Patrick. Have a good night.
Mrs. Audrey, do we have any more comments?
Yes, we do. We have Jeff that says like this, in his opinion: if you have a problem with immigrants, you should think again. Many come to find work and start a new life. There are many jobs that Canadians don't want to do that they will. This country is understaffed. I believe they help rather than hurt the country. Eric says immigration is not the answer. That only brings more problems than it can potentially fix. We need to dig deep into our own citizens and find talent and promote culture of hard work. Hard times are ahead, and it seems like most younger generations has lost the will to fight and to own their own house, to have a family, and etc. What we need is stricter immigration laws that will get the right quality of people to work here. So there we have it.
Yeah, very, like Chris had said, a very divisive group of comments, people who think the opposite. But let's see what people here in Toronto had to say about the matter. We'll be right back.
I think there needs to be more investment in housing and more support groups in the communities to help people become familiar with the neighborhoods and the whole system, how society works. I'm not sure, I don't think, I was privileged to have friends who helped me, Canadian friends, Anglo-Canadian friends who helped me. That was excellent. I don't think we could have done it without their support.
But I agree with the policy of the government that the age of everyone that coming in Canada has to learn to English, right? So that's a good thing. But that's because of that, a lot of immigrants, that's really hard to come here. That's why they go now to a visa for student. That's the easiest for them to come. But this is a big financial problem for them to pay the tuition fees because it's very triple or quadruple the tuition fees compared to the regular Canadian.
That's up to the government to give proper funding for you guys instead of having you guys sleeping on the streets.
Do you think Canada should close its doors to immigrants until the crisis is solved, the housing crisis, or we should continue to let people come?
I think the doors should continue to be closed because there's crisis everywhere. Some countries is even worse than here. So I think Canada should continue to keep its doors open, but maybe some more public education programs and more funding to support immigrants as they come, not just leave them on their own.
Well, I think that that's supposed to be what Canada is all about, right? You know, we're supposed to be here for that. You know, this is a great country, man. We should be sharing it with people who are looking for a better life, right? Getting away from troubles and coming here for a better chance at living.
Don't let them come in anymore because it's ruined the people the people who work hard here. We don't get enough for the pension that we got from the government. Me, I work hard. I work at the nursing home for how many years, but I only have $600 pension every month.
I think if they don't work out something for housing, we should close the door for a bit because we have so many people here in the city who are homeless, and it just adding more people in that we can't feed, we can't house. It's like if you have a full restaurant, you don't ask more people in and make it overcrowded for nothing.
Canada bringing refugees and immigrants is helping the country or making the country have more problems?
The immigrants can help, but the refugees, we work hard in this country to get our pension, right? But these people are more than wealthy with us. The refugees, they are rich in their country because they are from the Middle East country, which is a very rich country with an oil they have. But the thing is, when they are here, they just give them everything they can. They have their own living with a house, good housing, provided by good housing by the government, and plus the money they are getting. But we people, we work hard. But how much we have in a pension? It's only $600. How can we survive with the $600?
Well, you know what? My best friend is an immigrant. I was in a house fire, and he wants to be a Canadian citizen, hardworking guy. Exactly the kind of people we need here in this country. You know, Canada's always been open arms, welcoming. I don't know anybody who complains. You know, I love everybody here, man. All the new people here.
I don't think they are the problem with housing. I think the housing crisis is probably the financial market, how they are exploiting the situation to their own advantage. I don't think immigrants are the problem. I mean, Canada could not live without immigrants. That's the fact.
When people talk about immigration, they often talk about money.
But is immigration good or bad for an economy? Here are the facts. High levels of immigration tend to expand the total size of an economy. More people in Canada means more people buying clothes, groceries, and cars. More people equals more money being spent. So our economy gets bigger, but that doesn't necessarily mean more money for everyone. Typically, in developed countries, GDP per capita doesn't increase much, at least not initially. New immigrants tend to have much lower earnings than their Canadian-born counterparts. During their first years in Canada, they don't pay as much tax as the average Canadian, and they're more likely to get help from the government. But that changes over time. A Carleton economics prof says, in terms of social assistance, immigrants eventually become like the rest of the population, and in time are no greater drain on government services than people born in Canada. So eventually, immigrants don't need more social assistance than Canadians. But what about their impact on the job situation? According to the experts we spoke to, immigration does have some initial negative impacts on wages and employment. That's because an influx of people working for lower wages brings down averages in an area. But that's short term. Long term, the impact on workers is neutral. Not a benefit, not a burden. Newcomers are also more entrepreneurial than the general population once they get comfortable in their new country. Business ownership rates are higher among immigrants who've been in Canada for a decade or more. But they're more likely to have a service or a retail startup, and their businesses tend to be on a smaller scale than their Canadian counterparts. Think of it this way. If you take 100 immigrants and 100 people born in Canada, the immigrants will start more businesses, but they'll employ fewer people in total. But having an influx of immigrants is still valuable for a country like Canada with an aging population. All those retiring boomers mean taxpayers will be on the hook for higher healthcare costs, benefits, and government services. Low-skilled immigrants can help fill labor shortages, and newcomers with a higher education, work experience, and the desire to make things happen, they can transform a country or even a sector. Case in point, Silicon Valley in the US. Of the 87 most valuable private startups, more than half were founded by immigrants. And 71% of them had immigrants in key executive roles. And there are also countless examples of immigrant success stories in Canada. So not only does the economy need immigrants to combat an aging population, newcomers contribute in a lot of big ways.
It's the most diverse city in North America. More than half of Toronto's residents are born outside Canada, and that number could soon explode. Sean Fraser is Canada's immigration minister.
The number of newcomers that we welcomed the year prior to forming government was about 240,000 annually, and by 2025, we'll be increasing it to 500,000.
By 2025, Canada's government hopes to bring in nearly 1.5 million immigrants to fill critical jobs.
We are currently in a healthcare crisis and in a significant nursing shortage. So we really needed to get creative and innovative.
At Toronto's largest city hospital, the recruitment push is on.
Hello, how are you doing?
25-year-old Amandeep Kaur was a nurse in India. She arrived in Canada just as the pandemic began.
I never thought that I would be at this place, like working in a world-class hospital.
We currently have about anywhere between 400 and 500 vacancies in nursing alone.
Toronto's a multicultural city, one of the most diverse in North America. But people here say they need even more immigration to fill key labor shortages. In 2022, immigrants made up 23% of Canada's population, the largest proportion in more than 150 years. That's compared to just 14.6% in the United States.
It is a nonpartisan issue in Canada. It really isn't. All the political parties support immigration.
And with a rapidly aging workforce, business leaders have been pressuring the government to up the number of immigrants for years.
We need more people. We don't care where they're from. If they've got technical skills, if they're willing to work, if they're able to, work with numbers, bring them in.
Did you run up against any of that kind of opposition in Canada? People saying that we should preserve Canadian jobs for Canadians.
Look, that narrative comes up every once in a while. We still have almost 1 million vacancies in the Canadian economy where businesses need workers.
Workers like Amandeep, who now call this country their home.
Personally, I've felt so. Like I've gotten all the support because I was alone here. So I've gotten all the support from all the communities that are here.
Julia Ainsley, NBC News, Toronto.
Hiring temporary immigrants can address labor shortages in various industries such as agriculture, healthcare, and technology, and support economic growth. Immigrants often possess specialized skills and take jobs that are difficult to fill with local talent, ultimately benefiting the Canadian economy. Overall, embracing the diverse workforce benefits the nation's cultural fabric and global competitiveness.
And we're back with our closing comments. Mrs. Audrey, if you have any more comments, and then let us know the results of the poll.
Yes, so I do want to go ahead and read the results for our poll. As it stated, immigrants and the workforce. Do you think that refugees, immigrants are helping the country, or have they become a problem? So the final results we have is 48%. Everyone should be welcomed and accepted. 14% say they neither help nor hurt the country. 9% say close the borders, they are a problem. And 29% say that government is always the problem. So just as you have seen here, we have so many people giving their opinions, letting us know what their thoughts are on this. And if you want to continue sending in your opinion or just speaking your mind, go ahead and feel free to give us a call, 877-785-8700. So we have here the final results, Pastor.
And what we want to share with you now in the Word of God, it's in the book of Genesis. Let's see. I don't know if we can put it on the screen. I don't think we can, but regardless of that, whether you are someone who is from this country or out of this country, your value or the opinion that people have on you is not solely based on if you're someone who can help the country or not. Because at the end of the day, all of us are looking to go forward in our lives. And when our lives are in the hands of God, that process, that difficulty that can even surround us, it ends up being removed. And God ends up promising, fulfilling his promise that he left for us, that he would open the windows of heaven and pour down blessing until it's over in abundance. And maybe that's what you've been needing in your life. Blessings over in abundance. Maybe you say, Pastor, I haven't seen blessings in my life. All I have is a bunch of problems, a bunch of situations that just go against what I want. But you can put an end to that. That's why I want to show you the testimony, the story of Jackie and her daughter. People who, when they arrived here at the temple, their lives were completely broken. But now they were able to be changed. I want you to pay attention. When we come back, we're going to make a prayer in favor of all of you. We'll be right back.
My name's Jacqueline Flores. I'm 38 years old, and my addiction started when I was 16. My cousin was living with me at the time, and I really wasn't into drugs or anything, but my cousin, he liked to smoke weed and everything, and then he finally said, hey, cousin, why don't you come smoke some weed with me and stuff like that. So I was like, at first I was like, no. And then I was like, okay, well, let me try it. So I went ahead and I smoked a little bit of weed. After then, I just couldn't stop. Every day I got addicted. I was like, I had to have it. If I didn't have it, I would get mad. I would get frustrated. Then I tried cocaine. I went to cocaine and alcohol and cigarettes. The high only lasts for maybe not even 2 to 5 minutes, and it was done. And then you're back to normal again, and you're just worried about, well, where am I going to get my next high? Where's my money at? Oh, I need some more money. I hit rock bottom when I knew that my family was torn apart because of my addiction. And another thing, also, my son's father is in prison now, and he was stealing. We were living together in hotel rooms. He was stealing just for us to get high together. So he would go steal, sell the merchandise, and then we would get high. There was times where I wanted to go home. I would call them and tell my daughter, hey, I want to come home, Madison. I'm on my way. And I would be lying to her because of drugs. I said, the drugs had me. I tell you, when you're on drugs, the drugs won't let you do nothing. They'll make you stuck and they'll make you stay. You won't be able to do nothing. You'll lie to your family. You'll lie to your kids. You'll lie to anybody just to get drugs. But I love my kids so much. I wouldn't change it for the world. It hurt me to know that the things that I did to my kids. What I have experienced with my mom was very hurtful and troubling. When I was about 10 years old is when I first started noticing and actually understanding what my mom has been doing. But as I grew older, me and my mom we've always fought a lot, and we always argued, and we never had a close relationship ever in my life. I just didn't feel like I had a mom in my life, and I didn't have my dad either. So when I wanted my mom most, I didn't. My mom would leave sometimes most of the day and every day. When she would leave, I would be so worried. So I would have my phone, I would text her over 100 messages a day because she wouldn't come home for about a couple of days or sometimes a week. I would think either she was dead or if she was in prison. So I was really worried because I had my brother with me. And I would have to take care of him. If she wasn't there, I would take care of him. And so I would tell her, where are you? You should be home. Why are you not with your kids? Because if you're not with your kids, it's not a family, and we would be worried. I was introduced by the Universal Church through a friend of mine. She always called me, hey, Jackie, are you coming to church? We need you to be here at church. How are you doing? She would come to my house to check up on me. The process of me going to church and getting off of drugs, it took a while. I would go to church, come out of church, fight it, go back to drugs, come out. It was about 3 years I was fighting it. I do chain of prayers. I come to the Universal Church 7 days a week, and I placed my whole self, my sacrifice on the altar to overcome the addiction that I'm going through and to have my family back. As a result of me putting my life on the altar, I got my family back. I got my unity with my daughter, my son. I'm no longer on drugs. I'm no longer oppressed. I'm happy. I'm at peace. I'm at joy. I'm just so happy. I'm happy for even pleasing God. The first things that I saw in my mom when she changed was when she started slowly staying home, canceling out all of her friends or the bad people she was hanging with. She stayed home with her kids. She never went out. So I was like, okay, I see her changing, but are we going to change? So I prayed about my mom's relationship in mind to have a bond, to actually have a best friend bond together. And me and my mom, we would never hug. We would never say I love you because it just felt like, ew, that's weird. But we never did that. And we didn't usually go out with each other to go do our nails or go out to eat. But now, every day we say I love you. When I go to school in the morning, I say I love you. I give her a hug. We do things together. We go shopping. We go out to eat. We go to movies and stuff like that. And this is my mom, but also this is like my best friend. I've transformed into a new person. I have the Holy Spirit now. And anybody's life can change. Just give yourself to God, be obedient, sacrifice to Him, and He can change your life. I am a warrior now.
Lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from my Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord. The one who keeps Israel.
Prepare a glass of water or get closer to your television screen. At this moment, we will have a special prayer to your name.
My God, we make this prayer now for this person who watches us now and who falls under the category of immigrant, who has been coming from another country, but not to take a vacation, who's been coming from another country to go forward, to see something different in their lives. My God, we know that your power is not limited. So I ask that you work inside of this person who is a hard worker, this person who just wants to go forward with their family, this person who probably is from here, Canada, yet they haven't been able to break through. They haven't been able to prosper. They haven't been able to see the blessings that should be over their lives. My God, when there is a lack of prosperity, there's no one to blame. There's not an immigrant's fault. It's not an immigrant's fault why a Canadian isn't prospering. No, it's just that those blessings come from you. And that's why I pray for this person, that in Jesus' name, they receive what they've been needing. If you have this cup of water with you, we determine that this water be blessed, and that in the moment that you drink of this water, you also become strengthened with the power that comes from above. That's what we determine. Be free right now from all the troubles. Be free right now from everything that's been bothering you. Be free right now in Jesus' name. And if you believe, say amen. Let us drink right now in this moment. Amen. You are blessed. And if it's one thing that we want to show you, you're only going to be able to see the power of God in your life, much more with prayer, much more than prayer, but with provoking that. You want to provoke that change, provoke the miracle this Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning, in our gathering of faith and miracles here in Toronto. Like you guys see right now on the screen, 2420 Dufferin Street. We're in the corner of Bowie Avenue and Dufferin, a block and a half away from Eglinton, a very popular avenue. You can take the 29 bus or the 929 bus, and you're going to end up right in front of our temple. If you're watching us now and you want to put an end to that suffering, well, then you are more than welcome to be with us this Sunday. God bless all of you. Thank you for allowing us in your home. Have a good night.
Join thousands of people every Sunday at 10 a.m. in one faith. Based on this word, again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Matthew 18:19. Receive the 7 prayers.
I don't know how long I had that disease, but the way I found out is I had went to the doctor to have my annual physical. So they called me about the results and told me to get to the hospital because my sugar was so high that was threatening a stroke. So I participated in drinking the blessed water. Faithfully, I did it every day. I just continued in my faith and coming to the church and fighting against it.
Deliverance.
I was a victim of witchcraft. My mother sacrificed me since I was young. I couldn't walk. I was paralyzed for a long time. I don't remember half of my life. I remember being in the hospital. It was King County Hospital. I remember that I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to write. I saw demons. People think that evil's not real. It is real. I went to a lot of churches, like 23 Christian church. And I never felt like I felt when I came to the Universal Church. But when I came to this ministry, from the very first time that I stepped through that door, I knew there was hope in this church.
Prosperity.
I had a business that was doing at one point rather well.
and went down substantially, and experienced just hard times trying to bring it up. I experienced also 3 deaths in my family. My mother, my father, my brother passed away. Then we had the recession, and I really never recovered from that. And it's still hard times, but since I've been coming to the church here, my business is starting to recoup. I see opportunities where my phone is ringing. I want this house built. I want this done. I want this. My business is starting to take off to another dimension.
Family.
I was about to separate with my husband, and during the time I was coming to church, I learned to forgive. And when I learned to forgive, I started working on my relationship with my husband. And when my husband never opened up to me, never told me what was going on with his life, until one day I got a knock on the front door, and it turned out to be the police. And I had to learn, okay, God, you are here. I learned through the church, through tribulations, you use your faith. And that's when I said, hey, God is talking to me. This is a way I'm going to find a solution to my problem.
Love life.
And my husband and I were very happy, loving. Everybody in the neighborhood know us and always want their relationship to be like our relationship. Our relationship was an example that people wants to follow. Until one day I found out that my husband had someone else. And that turned me into a bitter and an angry person. Me surrendering my life to the Lord, I got baptized, was filled with the Holy Spirit. Now I have no hate. I'm not angry. I want to even save other people. Try to counsel other people who are going through problems in their marriage.
Encounter with God.
The suffering in my life, it started with me just basically having pain all over my body. And my mom took me to the doctor. They could not figure out what was wrong with me. I started having headaches, and the headaches get worse. It would go like from maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days. Then I started to have stomach pain. My whole body was in pain. And I just felt like something, just like a brick drop on my head. And I had that headache. It was so bad. And I was sweating. I felt like I was going to pass out. I wake up one Sunday morning and I'm coming to church and I'm like, I'm not leaving the church today without giving my life to God. I'm going to baptize today. And I came to church. Service is finished. I got baptized. And I never looked back.
Temple of Miracles, 2420 Dufferin Street, Toronto. 2420 Dufferin Street, Toronto.